Hey, everybody, and welcome to Feminine Legacy Podcast. I'm your host, Jackie Ma. And today, as always, we're bringing together beautiful guest leaders to come together to share their knowledge, their wisdom, their hearts in hopes of creating a legacy in a better world. So today, I'm joined by the beloved Parul Parvati Devi, and she is a sister I've known for some time now, and she is an incredible healer and coach, and she supports people using Vedic technology, Vedic astrology, Vendata, and Ayurveda to assist folks in accessing the roots of what might be obstacles in their paths and helping them to reassess and come into their truth. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce her and bring her on in. Hello, how are you?
Hi, good morning, Jackie. I'm great. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. I'm glad you're here with me.
Yes, thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
You're welcome. I'm excited too. So I want to begin by just weaving a little bit. We met actually, I had a reading with you quite some time ago. And I just am pretty enthused by the Vedic technology itself, as opposed to, I mean, Western astrology is wonderful, but it's like a whole other spectrum, and it changes our houses and changes the way in which we're perceiving data and information. So it's such a powerful learning, and it's so adept and nuanced. So it's big. So I was excited to learn more about that with you. And I want to begin because a lot of folks don't know much about any of this. But so want to weave in first and just say, if you had to explain what Vedic astrology even is, like a
Mm,
like a 101 of like, it's
okay.
from blah, blah, blah.
Okay, so it's I'm going to try my best. It's such a huge subject,
It
the
is.
Vedas, so I'll try my best to encapsulate it. And at any point when I'm speaking, if any questions arise for you, feel free to just jump in and ask them. So let's just take a step back from the Vedic astrology piece and talk a little bit about where it all stems from. Because, as you know, in my intro, I'm not only a Vedic astrologer, Jyotish as it's known, but I also study and practice Ayurveda, and I have been a lifelong student of Vedanta. So, what are all these things, Veda things? Well, it all stems from what is known to be the oldest and most ancient intact um, technology. I'd like to call it a spiritual technology, which stems from the Indian subcontinent. It's called the Vedas, Veda, and there's four Vedas. And these four Vedas are four books that speak about how to be able to optimize our lives here while we are on this planet. Now, a lot of people think that the Vedas are a religious text, and I would like to say that it's not. Vedic culture is not religion, it's devotion.
Mm.
It's not religion. And these Vedas pretty much lay out what, and I say it so beautifully, they lay out a technology. It is 100% a technology. It is, if anything can be called a spiritual science, the study of the Vedas is that. Now, most people would scoff at the idea of putting the words spiritual and science together in one sentence, but it truly is. So, for example, yoga, or what we know to be yoga, and all of the asanas or the postures that go along with practicing yoga, or pranayam, which is a breathing technique as well, that comes from the Vedas. You don't have to believe in anything in order to practice this. And if you practice this accordingly, you will see the result. You will. And that is the definition of science. If you A plus B equals C, and if you do it like this, and if you do it like that, but if you do it to the letter, you will see the result.
Mhm.
And with any of the Vedas, any of those technologies laid out in the Vedas, if you follow them, the result must come. It will come. So ultimately,
I agree.
all of these practices that stem from the Vedas, which includes Vedic astrology or Jyotish, that is a Vedanga, one of the fingers
Mm.
of the Veda. There's 4 main books, and then there's all of these like, side sort of angas or fingers. Ayurveda literally means the science of life. So if you learn the basic building blocks of Ayurveda, it promises you health and longevity. Vedanga, Vedanta, Anta is the end of the Vedas. What is the goal of the Vedas? The goal of the Vedas is moksha, or liberation of your soul into a higher state of consciousness, the end of suffering, the realization of who it is that you actually are. Now, these are huge concepts, but the Vedas actually give you a way to achieve this. It actually delivers these results. So Vedic astrology is one of those angas, okay? And they all go together. All of the technologies go together. It's known as Jyotish, which means, literally translated, the science of light, because they're the eyes of the Veda. And so you can see, right, when people practice such divinations or such sorts of spiritual oracle practices, they're seers, correct? We are seers. So Vedic astrology in that sense, how it differs. Sorry, I totally like went off.
No, you
Didn't even address your question.
no, you did. You did address it.
Okay.
It's rounded. Yeah.
Yes, and how it differs is, first of all, I want to say this straight off the bat, that there are many paths to the truth. This is why I love the Vedic system, because they don't claim, nor do Indians, the culture, claim that we are the only way. This is one way we know that it works. So if you would like to follow this way, we could tell you where you're going.
Yeah.
But it's not the only way. In India, it's you. And this is also what I love about all the sciences, is that there's no one size fits all. We look at you and all of your uniqueness, so that we have an image, we have a map, we have an idea, whether it's through Ayurveda, your body constitution, whether it's through Jyotish, your spiritual constitution, your karmic constitution, I should say more appropriately, whether it's whatever, anything that we use, it's all unique and it's tailor-made to you, because you are a unique individual here on this planet. So it doesn't negate Western astrology. As a matter of fact, in the Vishnu Puran, it talks about tropical, use the tropical astrology as well. Nothing is left out. It's all inclusive. Everything is included. But the way tropical astrology used is not so much individualized. It's more seasonal, right? Because we have the Tropic of Capricorn and the Tropic of Cancer. This is where the sun moves for the solstice, for the summer solstice and the winter solstice, and in between. And then it's on the equator. That's when we have the equinoxes. So this delineates the seasons, and it has its place, and it has its uses. As the Western, the sidereal zodiac, which we use in Vedic astrology, the sidereal is by the stars. So we have fixed stars, or the 27 nakshatras through which the moon moves. So already we have the tropical, we look at the sun's movement, And then with the sidereal, we look at the moon's movement.
Got it.
Now, the sun signifies one's soul, and the soul is one. My soul, your soul, the soul is, we
Mhm.
all share this life force together. But the moon signifies the mind. My mind, your mind, that's very different.
Yes.
So this is how we can get a cleaner perspective and a more tailor-made perspective to be able to look at each person individually. And from that point of view, we're able to extract things. Now, every reading I've ever done, especially here in the West,
Mhm.
I'm dealing with clients that know their sun sign, that
Yeah.
identify with their sun signs,
Mhm.
and they're very, like, I could tell they're super rigid, where you're that, no, I'm a Leo, no, I am
Yeah.
this, right? And then I'm like, okay, just like, let's see how this reading goes. And it never negates, it shows you yourself through some other perspective
Mhm.
or way. So it's just a richer um, understanding of who it is we are and what it is that we've come here to do. So I hope
Beautiful.
that answers your question.
It does
Thank
answer
you
my
so much for letting
question.
me just yeah.
You're welcome. It's perfect. Now, this takes me to lean in. So I understand that this is also an ancestral path for you. So I'd love you to like share a little bit of the background, sort of as to how you're here with me now in this work. Yeah, if you want to talk a little bit about what shaped you in your childhood and what kind of brought you here.
Sure, I'd be happy to do so. It's and if I'm going too much, like, just give me a little signal so I
Yeah.
can like reel it in, because
Okay.
these stories are quite
I
vast.
know that. Yeah.
Um, they can be. So I am a first generation um, Indian American. So my parents, excuse me, raised in India, came over to the States as immigrants in the 60s. And I even, I'm the first one born outside of India on both sides of my family. In fact, me and my brother, my younger brother, the only two um, children out of all the families that have been born
Mm.
outside of India. And, now my brother has children, and so they're second generation, but we were first. I was, and I was the first. And I'm sure maybe now it's changed quite a bit. I can't really say. I can only speak about my experience. But and I'm sure I share this experience with a lot of other children from immigrant families. I was growing up in the States, I was neither here nor there, meaning, in a way, my parents strived very hard to preserve their culture in a foreign land.
Mhm.
So at home, it was like being pure Indian, speaking, the language. The mother tongue is Gujarati with my parents, eating our traditional foods and living by a certain set of rules, a certain set of standards. And then I would leave the house and be in this completely other culture where those rules don't apply. The language was different, the food was different, the ethos was different, the culture was different. And I was sort of split between the two. I was American because I'm born and brought up here, but I wasn't purely American.
Mhm.
And I was Indian because of my blood and my lineage and my heritage, but I wasn't purely Indian either. So I didn't belong. I was neither here nor there. And that
Mhm.
caused such a deep confusion and a split inside of me, to the point where I didn't know, not only did I not know where I belonged, didn't belong anywhere. So I guess I belong everywhere, but I
Yeah.
got to that point. I got to that eventually. But I didn't know who I was. And I think not knowing who you are is a very common human conundrum.
Mhm.
And I think that causes us a lot of pain inside. It did to me. To be where I am and sitting here and speaking to you was that path of self discovery. Who am I? And
Mhm.
that led me down a very interesting road until finally one day, by quote unquote accident, I came across in my travels, because I was very much about discovering myself, my world. I used to ask them lots of questions. I always wanted to, explore.
Yeah.
I was an explorer, both internal and externally. And I went back to India. I used to go as a kid with my family, but I went back to India in the 90s as a backpacker, as a solo female young woman backpacker at a time where even when people would see a woman wearing jeans, it was out of the ordinary. People would stop and gawk at you because you're wearing jeans. I mean, India has changed a lot, but back then it was a different world. And through these travels and through trying to integrate and find this sense of belonging and find this place of who am I and what am I about, I was very fortunate to come across a very talented Ayurvedic doctor.
Mm.
And I did what is known as a panchakarma or a panchakarma. And this is a very deep, deep Ayurvedic cleansing of the doshas, or the different elements which can accumulate in one's system if they're not regularly
Mhm.
cleansed and fleshed out. And I always identified myself as someone who was a hot-headed and feisty young woman, someone who was like, yeah, just a hot-headed person, very spicy and feisty.
Mhm.
And when I did this panchakarma, there's this part where you cleanse out the different doshas. And we did the cleansing for the pitta dosha. And for those of you who don't know what the pitta dosha is, it's the element of fire and of heat that comes out of your system when we do this cleanse. And when I did this purgation, they call it, of this dosha, I had such a cool, calm,
Mm.
cool, shanti, relaxed head. And it dawned on me that I have always identified myself as this, but actually I'm not that.
Mhm.
I can be cool-headed. I can show up in a different way. It was only the dosha that made me exhibit this. So if that's not me, then what is me?
Can I
And that
interject
started.
something
Yes, you
real
can.
quick
Of
about
course you
this?
can.
I love
Yes.
this point because I'm continuing to fine tune this myself. Like this idea um, about passion, like, oh, I'm such a fiery, passionate woman. And it's like, no, actually, you are, it's the out of balance fire element. It is the
Yes.
distortion of emotional, it's an emotional distortion a lot of times for us. So me too,
Mhm.
when I was doing my process of the five elements, I teach it, and it's one of the things that when you purify these doshas,
Mm.
it is a game changer. And then you start to see that you are not these karmic imprints. All of this starts to fizzle out, and the balance starts to come online, and you get to experience more of who you are, and it's super beautiful. So
Oh
thank
my
you for
goodness.
saying that. Yeah.
It's so, you so beautifully said. Thank you. So beautifully said, because that is 100% percent of all the Vedas is to bring you back to who it is you
You actually
truly
are. Yeah.
are.
Yeah.
Yes.
And even, I'm just going to
Yes.
add in one more piece, even in
Please,
our
please.
ancestry, where we're like, we kind of plug
Mm,
into these traits, like, oh,
yes,
this is like a hot blooded Italian thing. Yeah, it's also an out of balance ancestral chain that is,
exactly.
it doesn't have to be the truth of who we are. And yeah, so we assimilate and these ideas and beliefs and root them in, but in actuality,
Mhm,
we're just out of balance with our full spiritual nature. And that's the work. It's dope. All
mhm,
right.
mhm.
Beautiful. Keep going.
Yeah,
I
and
love it.
it's definitely not the truth of who we are, like if we come in this human form, and like through my growth and through my practice, like I think when we're younger, we think we're the only ones going through this.
Yeah.
Nobody can understand. Oh my gosh, what I'm dealing with, right? And then you learn that this is very much a common human conundrum,
Yeah.
and that we grasp for things and we begin to identify ourselves as fiery Italian,
Yeah.
hot-blooded,
Yeah.
but it's the lineage. It's like these, well, getting to the Vedic astrology is known as samskaras, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Or these imprints. So you are this hot-blooded Italian in a sense because you're born into this samskara.
Yep.
And just like we can like inherit traits, physical traits, right? Because
Yeah.
if you think about it, we're nothing new.
Agreed.
There's nothing here. We're taking everything from somewhere,
Mhm.
right? It's all
Absolutely.
being passed into us. And so we misidentify ourselves and constantly looking for this sense of belonging, like I
Mm.
was, the sense
Yeah.
of like, who am I? Where do I belong? What is this about? And along the way, as human, like, imperfect
Mhm.
humans, we think that we're this, that, or the other. And then what we start to do is we start to judge ourselves.
Mm.
This is where the pain comes. This is where, the suffering comes,
Yeah.
right? Oh, I used to think I was a bad person because I was a hot-headed I was
Yeah.
temperamental.
Yeah.
Then I realized that no, it's not me, and then that started the unfolding.
Yeah.
But a lot of times most of the times we think it is us. And that, oh, it
Exactly.
shouldn't be like that. And so hence starts the further split within us of how we should be, and that we're not that. And it's all mired in in the ignorance of us not knowing our true nature
Mm.
as eternal, divine, primordial spirit. And my the beginning of my path was with Ayurveda, and I love Ayurveda. I'll get to the Vedic astrology. I know this is
No,
an
go.
interview about that, but in Ayurveda, the primordial cause of dis-ease, okay, and this, I love the Vedas for this, is forgetting our true nature as spirit.
Mhm.
The primordial cause. There's two other causes, but this is the main cause because it's a veil of forgetfulness that we have to, in this life, I believe. The point of this life is to discover who we are and
I'm with you.
reconnect with that divinity within us.
Mhm. It's a big incarnation for us.
For all
Big,
of
big
us. Yes.
unveiling. Absolutely. So let's go back again. So wait, so you're in Texas now. You are
Oh,
young.
yes. Okay. My story. um, so I began to walk the path of Ayurveda, and through walking the path, I learned so much. I learned how any path of healing requires a joy.
Mm.
It's not it shouldn't be a work or a force. that I need to be better, or I need fixing, or I need, because actually the truth is that you're completely whole.
Mhm.
Um, mis, mis, your misidentification. I'll say, for a lack of a better word coming into my head right now. So I studied and I practiced and I still practice Ayurveda, but along the way came the study of Vedanta, which is the Indian form or the Vedic form of non-dualism, of wholeness, because it's all holistic. And so that is a lifelong practice. And one of the primordial questions in that path, like, there's not any answer. It's just an inquiry
Mhm.
of who am I, right?
Yeah.
So that's happening alongside. And then I started to practice. I graduated, I started to practice Ayurveda. And in my practice, I realized that, do you know how hard it is to change oneself? How hard is that? And here I was trying to help other people change.
Mm.
And I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. I'm a very empathic individual.
Mhm.
I got very attached to other people's progress or not progress. And, in order to be any kind of a healer, you have to have a sense of detachment. You have
Yes.
to allow, right,
Yep.
the spirit to do its work, and you're just the vehicle. But I was not able to do that. So then I realized that I still want to help people to discover who they are, but how can I do it in a way where it, with Ayurveda, just to really touch on one more point,
Mhm.
in order, when you're manifesting some sort of an imbalance, it takes years and years and years and years of accumulating and having a certain diet, having a certain
Mhm.
lifestyle, having a certain mentality, beliefs, all of it. You
Yeah.
know this as a healer. And then it gets to a point where the bucket, there are drops in a bucket and the bucket overflows.
Mhm.
And then they come to you to seek healing and guidance, which is wonderful. But it takes a while. It took a while to get to that point. It's going to take a
Yeah.
while to unwind that.
Mhm.
Um, and I feel like, and then this is not any kind of a negative point. I just think it is the world we live in, that people want to see fast
Yeah.
results.
They want it
And
now.
mhm. And a lot of people believe in Ayurveda conceptually, but I think their patience to really put together and instigate a deep change. We have a ways to go still in this country, I think. Um, so as a practitioner, unfortunately, I wasn't getting the satisfaction either of seeing the clients coming
Mhm.
through the process,
Yeah.
and taking the time. So my maternal grandfather was very instrumental in the science of Ayurveda and yoga, way back when, in the 40s, when India became independent from British rule. He was very instrumental in bringing the knowledge and the study of, and legitimizing Ayurveda again as a real
Yes.
scientific um, study and practice. And my paternal grandfather was a Vedic astrologer. And so in this whole process of me discovering myself younger, when I was growing up in Texas, I actually threw off or
Mm.
rejected my ethnicity because I wanted so much, this is going back a little
Yeah.
bit, when I was younger, to belong. I wanted so much to belong in the society I was being brought up in. And I
Mhm.
wasn't I wasn't accepted in that society because at that time, and again, Texas has changed, this was in the
Yeah.
70s when I was a young girl and growing up, that it was much more, there was the Iran hostage situation, around hostage crisis. Those of you might remember that. And I had a lot of, I was really bullied because of my race and the color of my skin and my name. And it was so foreign to to my schoolmates that, I was really harassed and put down for who it is that I was.
Was this a predominantly European environment, or were there a lot of Black folks too?
No, no, this was in Texas, and this was, it was a mix, but not, I had moved from the East Coast.
Yeah.
So I had moved from, before we moved to Texas, I was in New Jersey and Cherry
Okay.
Hill. And there was a lot more ethnic diversity that had been, the older established,
Okay.
so
Yeah.
families were there for generations, kind of.
Yeah.
And that whole ethnicity was part of the ethos
Yeah.
of the culture in the East Coast, because the East Coast is older.
Yeah.
And when we moved to Texas, it was quite Texan.
Got it.
There was some ethnic diversity beginning. There was Caucasian as well as African American children there, but there weren't a lot of Indian people yet. Now there's so many Indians in Texas, but
Mhm.
at that time, I was definitely a minority.
Yeah.
And I think just because the political tension that was happening with the Shah was overthrown, the Ayatollah Khomeini had come into power. There was just a lot of, political
Okay.
unrest, as there always is.
Mhm.
And I was, targeted. But as a very young girl, 7, 8 years old, and then in middle school, where all you want to do is be accepted,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
to be shunned and ostracized and bullied and put down really made me hate being Indian. If I'm to be completely honest, I hated it
Mhm.
and didn't want anything to do with it. So, my journey also is this whole full circle into rejecting my ethnicity and my heritage, and then reconnecting with it as an adult, and then moving past it as a human to realize that in essence, we are truly all one. And I think once you get to know who you are, then so much of this unnecessary suffering, I guess I don't want to say unnecessary because it's part of the journey,
Yeah. Mhm.
but you can overcome it because it doesn't matter anymore. You know who you are.
And and I might say, let's see if this will get a crowd boo, but it's actually happening so that you can find who you are. Like if you
Yes.
just were seated in your ethnicity, no issue, no problem, you wouldn't have sought outside of you wouldn't have sought any further. But it's almost was constructed in such a way that you left your homelands, your nest, so that the divine could kind of infiltrate the scene and bring you
Mhm.
into discomfort, and for you to like move in and out of these ancestral prototypes for you to seek
Mhm.
your own sense of self.
Mhm. Exactly. Exactly. 100%. And I think that that is one of the reasons that we have to strive and overcome suffering, or at least question
Mhm.
in our all of our lives. I think that's one of the reasons it's there in our paths, is to so that we could get back to our essential nature,
Yeah.
which transcends everything. It transcends ethnicity, it transcends gender, it
Yeah.
transcends all of it.
I'm
All
a
of it.
big I'm a big fan of this conversation, as you know, and just in general around matters of race and identity, like
Yes.
finding the place within that this is your envelope, and that although it's rich and we can be very proud of it and it's beautiful, it is just part of the fabric of who you are, and it is not your soul. Your soul, this
No.
is just like the place where you get to play out.
Yes. And I mean, we could change the channel slightly here, because what comes up for me is all of this identity politics,
Mm,
right? I mean, not to
preach.
like
Let's go.
venture into it, but I mean, it's up. And see, I think from where, I mean, I can only speak from my experience, but I think my experience is the human experience,
Yeah.
in that we're born into this life. And look, let's be honest, nobody knows how we got here. How did we get here? Right?
Yes.
Nobody knows what the hell to do
Yeah.
here.
Yeah.
Like, what am I supposed to
Yeah.
do? One of the biggest questions I get is, what's my purpose? What am I
Purpose.
meant to do?
Same. Yeah.
Everyone's confused. No one knows. And nobody knows when they're going to be taken out.
Yeah.
Okay. So we don't know how we got here. We don't know what to do here. And we don't know when we're leaving here.
Yeah.
So what does that mean? That means that we are the ultimate insecure. That's the ultimate insecurity.
Yeah.
You can't get more insecure than that.
Yeah.
So then what happens? And we have to grasp for something to make us feel in
Mm,
control,
yep.
powerful. I got this. And through that process, we misidentify. We need something to hold on to. I'm an
Yes.
American. I'm a
Me
Hindu.
too.
I'm a yada yada.
Yep. I'm a
Right?
mother. I have value,
And
all the things.
all of it, you name it, the list is a mile long.
Yeah.
And if anyone tries to
Mm,
rattle that identification or question that, you're going to defend it as if
yeah.
it's your own life.
Yeah.
You will die for it, for a
You
miss.
will.
Yes.
Yep. For an
I
ego
am this. How
structure.
dare you tell me I'm not this,
Mm-hmm.
But this might be a role, this might be a costume that you're donning, but it's not you.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is the path of the Vedas to show, like, what is it? I'm sure you the neti, one of the paths in Vedanta, right? Not this, not
Not
this,
that.
not this, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Neti, no, 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 no.
And
So
it's,
we go
go
ahead.
ahead.
No, no,
It's
please.
funny because
Mhm.
we see and know, I mean, you're on the West Coast, I'm on the East Coast, and we're in like prime hubs for watching a lot of this political racism and identification coming through.
Mm,
New York, California, Chicago, these are big, big city hubs
yes.
for pushing agenda. And so we're also watching, so there is an evolution for sure of returning to
Mm,
spirit, right? So,
mm,
and kind of the first house I think that people turn to is their ancestral house. Like, this is the
mm,
skin I'm in.
mm,
Okay, let me explore a little bit of what's going on here. And that's
mhm.
beautiful. And it's really important. And please, I mean, for us to get stuck there is a travesty.
Yeah.
it,
It's a
it is
step.
it is. It's like a further identification of, now I'm going to choose this because the people before me chose it. And it is like a curse. I mean, that in itself
Mm,
is a generational cursing.
mm,
So
mhm.
just it's interesting to watch the spectrum of how, yep, humanity is moving through a phase, and let's just keep the wheel in motion and keep moving and growing, because we can see how polarized it is and
Mhm.
how the masses are excited about that polarization. So it really incites people to like root down into the belief that, like, I am the color of my skin. It
Mhm.
validates who I am, my
Mhm.
behavior, my oppression, or my privilege, whatever the song is that each little birdie singing. And how to come correct and be like, this is a total distortion.
Yeah.
I can be in my majestic self and find a way to be true again, not to sacrifice myself, but to find the source of the energy, the light, the emanation that I uniquely bring from this ancestry,
Yeah.
and bless the world with the truth, which is, yeah, it's huge.
I
Oh,
agree with you so wholeheartedly, except one small caveat,
yeah, tell me.
which is in a way you do have to sacrifice yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Not in a harmful way, but you got to get out of your own way.
Yes, totally. Yes. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
because it's almost that ego that stops you from being able to reach that place within
Yeah.
you that is bigger than you.
Yeah.
So if you're going to play small, that's where you're going to be. So you got to
Yeah.
kind of throw that off,
Yeah.
and you know
That's
what I'm
true.
saying.
I know
What I mean
exactly
by
what you're
that.
saying.
Yeah.
And even forfeiting that space of belonging, which we know we all go through, right? It's almost like
Hmm.
it's what keeps us seeking,
Yes.
right? It's like, oh, this isn't it. Nope, I don't belong here. I don't belong there. And then finally it's like, you belong everywhere. And these are not your groups. And these are not, these people don't identify who you are. It's just, you've been identifying all wrong because
Yeah.
you haven't seen the source of who you really
You don't
truly
know who
are.
you are. You don't
Yeah.
know who you are. And that is the source of all suffering. And that's why the quote unquote powers that be are able to manipulate
Manipulate
us.
us.
Because
Exactly.
if you're rooted in the truth, you're not going to buy into it.
Yeah. So this segues me into another question we didn't talk about earlier, which
Okay.
is how do you feel about do you believe like appropriation is a real thing?
Oh yeah.
And yeah. And do you feel like it's very natural for people, for souls to get called to traditions outside of their
Sure.
ancestry? Yeah. What's your take on that?
I mean, yes and yes on both.
Mhm.
It's very interesting that you asked me this because I've struggled with this for quite some time within
Mhm.
myself, because I was severely bullied
Yeah.
for being an Indian person to the
Mhm.
point where I remember as a kid, like in middle school, like daydreaming and pretending that my name, and this is so sad, but I'm going to tell
Mm.
the truth here,
Yeah.
pretending my name was Kelly White. I
Mm.
wanted my name to be Kelly White. How telling is that, huh?
Yeah.
And and like I said earlier, I hated my ethnicity because I was just severely bullied for it. At first I didn't even understand why. Why are these
Yeah.
people bullying me? But after many years, how many years? 3, 4 years, middle school, 3 years, and I moved to Texas maybe a year before that.
Mhm.
Um, maybe 2. By the time I got out of it, I was so insecure, and I
Mm.
actually came out of it hating who I was. Like, it really left a deep scar
Mhm.
inside of me. And then, like the 70s, the 80s, and then, I didn't associate so much with Americans after that because I felt completely rejected by the
Yeah.
American culture. And I wasn't quite an Indian, but I felt more comfortable with other Indians.
Mhm.
By this point in the 80s, there were more and more immigrant families coming from India and Pakistan, from England, from Africa. And so we shared this unique sort of cultural shame,
Mhm.
if you will.
That's a
And also we had families. We shared this unique sense of having these, different lives at home, and there was an understanding between us all. So I felt more comfortable hanging out with the Indians, but there was also this very Western side of me that I could not deny. And I couldn't take on these roles of this good Indian girl who was subservient and, made chai for her husband kind of mentality. I just couldn't. It wasn't me either.
Mhm.
So, where was I going with this? Oh my goodness. Oh, the appropriation. So, it was quite a struggle, the whole thing. And then finally, when I graduated from university in the early 90s and I moved out to California, this is where it got really interesting because in California, I saw that the ethnic groups out here actually mixed with one another, which is
Mhm.
something that didn't happen so much where I was raised. And there were all sorts of people at the Indian restaurant eating Indian food. And, I was in my early 20s. And so I've spent a good long time here in California. And 30 years or more now. And I've seen the evolution of, just of everything, how we're more connected, we're globally connected. And I'm seeing how on the other side, while there are genuine seekers,
Mhm.
Western seekers
Yeah.
that resonate with the Indian culture, with the Vedic philosophy, that have done yoga, have gone on meditation retreats, have something has awakened them. There is a genuine
Mhm.
sense because, our culture doesn't own this. It's meant to awaken the world.
Yeah.
But I also have seen how it's been bastardized a lot for
Mhm.
monetary gain. So,
Yeah.
it's not a clear black or white answer, because then I see people that have gone on this 1 week Ayurveda retreat and suddenly, they're Ayurvedic this and that, and they change their name to Shakti. No offense to any of the Shaktis out there, by the way, but they're
I know.
appropriating it
Mhm.
and using it in order to profit from it. And everything's all Instagram shiny, and I am this, and I'm a yogini, and I'm a dakini, and I'm a bikini, and all of this, and exploiting it, which I believe is kind of the way of the West. It's we're our culture, if it could be surmised in any one word, would be capitalism, right? So we
Yeah.
shouldn't be surprised by this. But I did hold a lot of anger against it for a long time, because I was, as an Indian person, treated in such a horrific way
Yeah.
that now those same people that were oppressing me are taking my culture, which I ended up being ashamed of, and profiting from it.
Yeah.
So for me, it's a very difficult question. I think I'm at the point now where I realize that I don't own it. I
Yeah.
am of this culture, but I don't own this culture. And this culture is meant, the Vedic knowledge is meant for liberation
Yeah,
of
it
and for
is.
realization. So how can I say that no, because you have white skin, you can't follow my culture? I can't say that. That's not right either.
I'd like
But
to acknowledge that
mm,
the ego structure and say I totally understand it, and big
mhm,
hugs for sure of like what that feels like inside, and also
yeah.
the other part of like, yeah, it doesn't belong to us. It is a
Mm,
massive, I mean, we look at this planet right now. When I'm in this middle of Italy, there'll be like a yoga studio randomly, and in
mhm,
Italy, in like the most remote villages.
mhm,
So, I mean, it is touching everywhere.
mm.
It is like meant to completely awaken. And you have all of these teachers in the East that are like, this is your Dharma, bring it back home to the West.
Yeah, West needs it.
Yeah.
But what's really sad is when I go to India, I see how the younger generation of Indians, it's like, you remember that movie Freaky Friday,
Yes.
where the mom and the
And the daughter.
teenagers
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
switch,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It's kind of like a global Freaky Friday.
Yeah. I'm with you. I get it.
Because the Indians there are completely throwing away their culture. It's old fashioned to them
So
because they
much.
were bound by it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
not their fault either. See, India, just for a bit of background, was a closed economy. This is what Mahatma Gandhi did. Mahatma Gandhi tried to help India in that make India self-reliant.
Mm,
It saw the threat of globalization, and he wanted India to be self-reliant, meaning all foreign
yeah.
trade was closed.
Mm,
No foreign trade. So everything made in India, used in India, by India, we make
yeah.
ourselves, which is great in theory.
Yeah.
But what happens is that when you're not allowed to have things from the outside, you start to hanker for it.
Yeah.
You want it.
Absolutely.
So Indira Gandhi in 1990, 1991 was the one who opened up the foreign investment into India. But then there
Okay.
was a clause that said 1% Indian owned,
Mm,
49% foreign. Now, of course, it's all wide open. But that was the first opening of foreign goods being able to be marketed and produced outside of India being brought in. In fact, it had to be produced inside of India at that time when it had to be inside of India still. So generations of Indians that didn't have access to all of these name brands and all of the
Yeah.
bling bling from the West, like, were more than happy to allow that into their country.
Yeah.
So now it's like they want to be more westernized because they haven't
Yeah.
been allowed to be.
Mm-hmm.
And in the West, we've learned to see what is valuable and how all of this commodification of everything isn't where it's at.
Yeah.
So we're kind of going back into finding what is more real, and this is all the
It's
East. So it's,
it's
it's
like
the way
these
of the
poles
world.
that keep
Hmm.
shifting back and forth. The pendulum swings are so
Yes.
extreme that you can almost get seasick. But like, oh, just finding that sense of like, I mean, we have no choice to find
No.
that sense of neutral balance, right? And balance it out because we are where it's a spectrum of everything. And with globalization, and
Mm.
it's also pushing us to root into more of who we are. So it's really,
In a way, like, I just got back from India not so long ago, and there, it's also very much identity politics.
yeah, yeah.
India has always been a secular country in,
Mm,
in that it allowed all races, all religions,
yeah.
everything you can find there, everything allowed, except for foreign investment. But anyway,
Yeah. Yeah.
that's the different story. But like, you are allowed to pray to whatever God you want to pray. You're allowed to believe in whatever you want to believe. There's room for you here. And now this whole Hindutva, and I don't even know if I'm saying it right because I don't like to even go into those realms, but very much it's this national pride, but not even national pride. I guess I should say racial pride. I don't even know how to say it. I hope I'm not
Mhm.
saying it wrong. I hope I'm not offending anybody by my lack of knowledge of the proper terminology, but it's, that's very much at play right now in India as well, that sort of radical, kind of in the spirit of the right wing, that we
Yeah.
are
Yeah.
this, we are traditional
Yeah.
Hindus and la la la, that's, so it's everywhere in the world, and until we really get to the source and we do our own inner work
Mm.
and we experience that inner divinity that has brought us all here. Until then, we're not going to humble ourselves and we're not going to let go of those identifications that separated. And I think that that's just the work set out for all of us. That's our ultimate path.
I
of-
think that sums up exactly. I mean, that is the ultimate path of legacy,
Yeah.
of returning to the divine child and realizing that we're divine humans and that everything else we do is a way to get us here.
Mm.
But there's a lot of distractions and it takes a very, very strong heart. I also
Yes.
believe it takes teachers
Oh, yes. It
because
helps.
it
It
helps. It
a
really
lot.
helps. Which leads me to ask you a question because I just love these nuances. So the word guru,
Uh-huh.
as you know, is so completely bastardized in Western culture. I have a lot of feelings about it because I have a guru,
Mm,
but
mm,
I'm just curious as a woman who comes from the East. I
mm.
mean, when people misunderstand it or like how, I don't know, is there anything that you want to speak to here?
Yeah, that's very interesting because I just came from India. Like I just said not too long ago, I was in one of my classes with my Jyotish guru, with my Vedic astrology teacher, who is a master.
Mhm.
And we really need these gurus.
Yes.
But again, we're in this day and age where things, even the guru in general, now I'm speaking,
Yeah.
can get enticed or lured off the
Mhm.
path, because it happens, like, that whole scandal with Bikram
Oh, so
and all,
many.
and so many, yeah, so many. And the only thing I can really say is that I've experienced firsthand, I've been very fortunate to experience this, the grace of the guru.
Mm.
And it really
That's good.
helps in unveiling that misconstrued ignorance, whatever
Mhm.
you want to call it, right? And you get the glimpse for a moment, just for a moment,
Mhm.
of that sattva, or
That's
that
the truth.
that light, that blessing, and that bliss. You experience it.
Mhm.
And that's the doorway opening for
Yeah.
you to know that there is another higher, not higher to categorize it, but a divine path to experiencing true happiness and wholeness within yourself. It is possible. It's
Yeah.
not just a pipe dream. I think we have to experience that. Now, can we experience that without the guru? Of course, because we all have a guru inside of
Within.
us,
Yeah.
a higher self, or whatever you want to call it,
Mhm.
a conscience that knows the way. We all have this internal navigation system. I think the blessing of the guru helps us. It's a grace. And the way I can tell is you just listen to that conscience inside.
Yeah.
Because that conscience that is rooted in satya, or truth, it knows that, okay, this person is legit.
Mhm.
This person, not
Yeah.
so much. You know it. So
Yeah.
inside, if you listen to that and you follow that voice, that guidance system, of course, you have to cultivate it, right?
Agreed.
Because then you
Yeah.
can get confused with it if you're too much in the mind. You
Oh,
know what I
yeah.
mean?
It's big. It's really big. I have a lot of different feelings about what's happening now. And it was not long ago where I was really conflicted with the guru. But when the path calls you and your guru
Mm,
comes,
mm.
it is what it is. It's already lined up for you,
You experience it.
you experience it. It's home, whether you like it, whether your mind wants to wrestle with it or not. And in the Western world, it was so bastardized,
Yeah.
especially if you're in women's work,
Yeah.
because then it's like, oh, you don't need a guru. And I just find it's a very
It's very
immature, or
important.
it's a very misunderstood
Mm,
concept, and almost, so if I might say, a
mm,
disrespect
mm.
to Indian culture, because there's such a vast misunderstanding. But this is
There is.
actually at a strong root of the culture. It
Very
would
much.
it would be like all of us walking around bashing everybody else's religion and using this language in a derogatory way.
Yeah.
And so I would like to see the population mature out of this,
But
because the guru is within. And if you're working with a guru, if your guru isn't trying for you to access your own inner guru, then your guru is a
right.
charlatan, right?
It's love.
Yeah.
Basically, it's love.
Yeah.
It's real love.
Yeah.
It's not just these sweet words and then abusive. No, it's love.
Yeah.
And you can feel that love. But along with the guru, it's not just the guru, okay? The guru opens the door,
Mhm.
and the guru will never ever make you follow them.
Yeah. A
The
true
guru,
guru.
yes,
Yes.
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 But along with the guru, what's very important is sangha.
Hmm.
Because see, in the West, the people, they only have the concept.
Yeah.
And
It's
unless you've experienced something of this nature of truth, of course people are going to think this, the way
yeah.
they think. I,
Yeah.
I mean, it's almost not even the fault of the people, because this is a different place, and what's important here is different than what's important there. Like, this society, not to knock this society, because it's working in the way it's working,
Yeah.
everything is what it is,
Yeah.
but this society is ultimately that of individualization.
Yes.
and success, material success.
Yeah.
That's what it's about. I mean, I could be wrong, but this is what I grok.
Mhm.
Whereas in the Eastern, now that's also different, but back before, it was not about the individual. You or you're not. You're there to live for others.
Yeah, and your
And
enlightenment is not just for you, right? It's for humanity. It's a
yes,
service.
yes, and it's of not. It's about a spiritual wealth, success,
Yeah. Yeah.
versus a material. So
Mhm.
it's completely diametrical opposite. Philosophies, theories, ethos of existence. So in
Mhm.
a way, you can almost not blame the society for just being wary of giving away your power to somebody else.
Mhm. Yeah.
Whereas in look at Ram Dass, like how critical he was of Neem Karoli Baba until
Yeah.
he had the freaking experience and then he surrendered. Now,
Yeah.
how many people are so lucky, right?
It's big. It's really big.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel very fortunate. In the end of the day, just to sum it up, I feel very fortunate in that before I was neither here nor there. Now I'm everywhere. And as a first generation um, Indian American, I feel blessed now. What used to be a curse, I feel blessed because I have the best of both worlds.
Mm.
I have the best of both worlds and I can relate to both and I can be in both worlds and feel completely comfortable and completely myself. I could be in any world right now, actually, and feel completely myself because I was fortunate enough to get to that space of discovering and really, really meeting that higher self, that divine
When you
place.
speak about that, I just want to bring it to a circle and say, when you're talking, I can feel the joy of your own ancestry that you get to hold both so beautifully. So there's liberation for
Big
them,
liberation. Yeah.
big liberation for them, and it's really big and beautiful. That's an incredible legacy to fulfill your own heart, your own dharma, and it's a natural blessing to all the parts that were part of your making.
Yes, and coming back full circle, like out of all of my thank you, by the way,
You're welcome.
um, Jackie, thank you for that.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
that means a lot. Yeah, I suffered a lot, I think, but we all do. And
Yeah.
when we finally realize we come to that place, it's a joy. And
Mm.
my work now is, to help people to bring people to that point
Yeah.
with the Vedic astrology, because I find with the astrology, it's such a, it's like a laser,
It is,
whereas
it's
with the
precise.
Ayurveda, it takes time,
Yeah.
right, of unveiling.
Yeah.
And with the Vedic astrology, as a complete stranger, for me to look at your chart and to see this in your life starts the client thinking, wow,
This is
I
his.
thought I was doing all this.
Yeah. And I thought I was doing it wrong. Like during my
Yes,
session, it was like, boom, my teenage pregnancy was right on the map. Like it was destined to happen.
it
And
was
so it
destined.
also liberates you from feeling
Yes,
like anything that you might have made choices in your life that may have been wrong, it's actually written in the stars already for you. It's so powerful.
beautiful. Yes, so well said, Jackie. So well said. And then that starts to loosen that grip
Hmm.
of the I am
Yeah.
a doer.
Yep.
And then that starts to move us forward in
It's
life.
it's big.
Wow. Yes,
Mm,
lovely.
so good.
What a
All right.
joy.
So tell everybody, I really enjoyed this today.
Me
Um,
too.
tell everybody how they can reach you. So if they want to work with you, get a reading, whatever, just be in your field.
Okay. So I am reachable several ways. I have a website. It's called Visionary Veda. veda.com. And I also have a YouTube channel where I do new moon and full moon and sometimes monthly forecasts. I've been traveling this past several months, so I haven't been as regular as I have in the past few years, but that is also Visionary Veda as well. I think I changed it to Astrology Devi Visionary Veda. I've got to check that just
We'll put the
recently.
details below so that way everybody can get in touch with you.
Thank you.
And
And then if they want to email me, visionaryveda@gmail.com, and then
okay.
I can tell them more information as well.
All right, perfect. Sounds
Thank you,
good. You're
Jackie.
welcome. And for anybody who check out ourfeminineLegacy.com for all of your support, guidance, womb healing, all the mystical bedazzles,
All the goodness.
all the goodness. Yeah, just check us out. And yeah, I just feel like this touched on a lot of different topics and they're rich. And they also are topics that are close to my heart because I'm very much connected and to the Indian spiritual technology. And so it's beautiful to like dance in the terrain of like, yeah, there's a lot. It's beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jackie, for inviting me onto
You're
your
welcome.
show and allowing me to share my experiences and just being right on point with all
Mm,
of it and being there and holding that space, and
you're
for
welcome.
your work as well in the world and helping women um to
Mm,
rise up and own their legacies and their lives
yeah.
in this time. I appreciate
Thank
everything
you.
that you do and who you are. So thank
Thank
you with all my
you.
heart, Jackie. It's been a
Thank you.
real pleasure.
Thank
I
you. I
appreciate
receive that, all the blessings back. And may everybody who sees this today, may it touch you in some way and help you to step out of your coats and your identities and claim your own divine inheritance of being a divine soul, a divine emanation of the one in this body.
Aho.
Aho.
So it is.
So it is. Thank you, everybody. Be well.